Okay, I finished polishing this hood with the Menzerna compound. I'm now ready to take this off. All my sanding marks have been polished off. I've confirmed if the lines are still showing up because I have not wiped off the polish completely. But because I can see through the polish, I'm under fluorescent lighting, which is very revealing. Nothing will reveal more than fluorescent lighting versus natural lighting or the sunlight. They reveal or highlight different problems of paint or different benefits of a paint. So I'm removing these because my sanding marks have been polished off, because this little ridge right here, this little high point, this whole strip here, over here and over there, will take about 1/10 the effort, the friction, the speed, the pressure, about 1/10. It'll go, how about this? It'll go about 1/10 quicker. You can define quicker however you want than the rest of the flat panel. So now, as I will show you, and you'll notice my pad, how it's getting a little more excess buildup around here because I keep putting the polish in the middle. So sometimes I will put a little polish on just outside of that edge, like if I'm not using a pad washer to keep this really fresh. But see how little I'm using? Just a couple little like bird droppings. There's probably 10. And now I've got a combination of adhesive, which really isn't adhesive. What it is the thickness of the tape will collect polish right at that edge. So I'm just gonna buff that off and the sanding marks. Just like that. 2 passes with about 5 pounds of pressure. I double check for results. I just made a 3rd pass just to get, there's a little bit of a residue of polish, but that's all that requires. I'm going to do the same thing over here. My pad has enough polish on it, so I'm going to use basically 3 bird drops of polish because I just want to just nail this in 1 or 2 quick passes. Okay, officially that was 3. My bad. And like everywhere else in detailing, you do something, you check your results, and then you make a decision. You respond based on what you observe. Are you getting the results that you want? Are you headed in the direction you want? If so, then you continue. If not, you back off, change plans, change course, and come up with a new plan. So now I'm going to wipe this polish off, and I'm going to switch pads. I'm going to switch to a foam pad, and we'll cut and we'll come back then. Okay, I wanted to show you 2 more sections on this car, and this is just to highlight that you guys, once again, in this modern day world, you don't realize how good you have it. The biggest problem you guys face is what I call information overload. There's so much noise out there, so much static. How do you get the signal? And by signal, I mean, how do you find someone that actually knows what they're doing, doesn't have a hidden agenda, and that will apply context? In other words, force you to pull yourself back so you can make a more informed decision. And that's what I talk about polishing, is that everyone wants to race to learn how to do paint correction, and it's just oh so glamorous and glorified. But most people, most guys lack the true discipline to do it properly. And the reality is I make quite a bit more as a general rule doing everything else. And polishing is requires so much discipline and so much work, and there's a lot of added expense between the polish pads, the compounds, the tapes, the sandpaper, that most guys forget to work that into their budget, and therefore their ROI, which is return on investment, return on dollars that you put into the job, your time, effort, and material costs, that when you walk away you realize, oh wow, I just made 20 bucks an hour. Whoop-de-doo. When I detail a car, I normally make 50 bucks an hour, or fill in the blank. But sure, it feels cool. Yeah, you made the paint look bitchin', but the amount of work that goes into it, and then the return on investment, unless you really know how to talk to a customer, and unless you really know your skills and you have that discipline, there's a lot of variables involved, but the industry will lead you by the nose and rush you to buy a very expensive buffer and polishes and blah, blah, blah. So I get it. We're all seduced by it. So my point with showing you these parts now in the sun is the fact that, yes, I will break rules. I will go against the mass mentality, or the herd mentality as I call it, and I will go counter to what the industry will teach you, or even the manufacturers will put on their own label, which is always used on a cool shaded surface. Well, guess what? Modern day chemical engineering makes it possible where I can literally do this in the sun. So let me grab my buffer and we'll resume in one moment. Now I'm at the back end of this Cadillac, and I only sanded the deck lid, which is right here. I did not sand the panel right here, so therefore the way I taped it up is just to protect the edges themselves and excess sling from getting into the crevices. So once again, I'm using my Menzerna FG400 high performance compound. Compound and polish essentially are the same. Unfortunately, it's a label that is misused over and over again. And that's why you have to define your words. Okay, when you say compound, what does that mean to you, Mr. Customer or Mr. Detailer? So this paint's pretty hot. In fact, I'm going to measure how hot that paint is. Bam! Got my trusty Ryobi or Ryobi, depends on probably what part of the country you reside in. 149 degrees. Okay, that's hot. At about 6 seconds, it gets too hot to even leave my hand on it. But yet I can polish on it. Okay, there's plenty of detailers out there in the forums or chat, whatever you want to call them. They'll say, oh, I would never do that. That guy's a hack. Okay, you can call me whatever you want. But bottom line, can I produce the results? Can I stay profitable? And can I keep making customers come back and get more of me and what I have to offer year after year after year? Well, the answer is yes. Why? Because I'm not fixated on the process. I'm focused on the results. How do I deliver the results? I am results driven, not process driven. A lot of guys, they have these OCD tendencies. And by the way, one of my viewers, I think he's calling his, I don't think it's you, Russ. Anyhow, I'm not bagging on you because I think he wants to go with OCD, and I get it. It makes sense. There's another detailer in my area called obsessive. I mean, look at me, fetish, you know? But I'm not bagging on that. I'm just saying is that it's kind of, there's certain industries that draw certain personalities to it. People with OCD disorders, obsessive compulsive, they tend to fixate on the process rather than results. So they're process driven, which means they think linear. in a straight line. I can't even wrap my words around my own thoughts. It's in a straight line. So they, in their head, 2 always has to come after 1. 3 always has to come after 2. You always have to do 1, 2, 3 in that exact order. Well, guess what? What if I can bypass 2 and I've saved myself time? I can either charge less or make more per hour because I've eliminated step number 2. So that's the difference between being process oriented or focused and results focused. I am focused on results. Therefore, I've learned how to polish in the sun. But once again, you always have to respond appropriately. So what's appropriate in the sun is going to be different than what's appropriate in the shade. That's the learning moment. So over here, now that those sanding marks have been polished out, now we have a different set of variables, because this panel I had to sand on this panel and the deck lid. So I'm going to break it down into sections, because if I was just to take this tape off and polish over this seam right here, I would either have to tape it off individually or I just break into sections. So I know that I can cut to the chase by taping it off this way, polish this real quick, move this tape over here to protect this panel now. Right now I'm focused on protecting this panel only. Something that you may have noticed is, based on the first part of the video, you may be questioning, Darren, how come you didn't put tape right on this character line? Because there's a gradual crease. Yes, I could have done it, but I know that it's gradual or soft enough where I can put firm pressure here on the flat section and then ease up on the pressure and go quicker. So once again, appropriate response based on the indicators or information. Well, this is all information that I need to respond appropriately to. And once again, I'm driven to results. So how can I get from A to B quicker with either the same results or better results? So the sanding marks have been polished off here. Now I'm gonna remove this piece of tape. And guess what? To save time, I can just simply remove it. This has been polished. So now I'm going to tape off this section with the same piece of tape, and now I'm just going to add an additional piece of tape here to protect this spoiler from sling underneath it and from getting burnt. Because if I hold this pad and I have to polish right up to this edge, I will be putting too much friction right along this edge of the spoiler, so I want to protect it. I don't know if this is going to show. Once again, very little polish. My pad is starting to get a little saturated, but once again, I'm cutting to the chase based on all the information. Okay, a couple of things. You'll notice that I tilted my buffer. That's so I could get this last little ½ inch right in here. So that will be a problem, because if this was a black car, that will show swirl marks. So I will either need to finish by getting this to a flat area, which means there's going to be overhang on this with the pad. But because this is now gone from a curved section, which is taped off, to a flat section, I know that I'm not going to burn through this. So I can bring this all the way up and over the tape and still have this vulnerable edge protected and eliminate those swirl marks that I would have put in by tilting my buffer so I could get right in tight to that edge and literally polish those sanding marks away. Because polishing sanding marks requires more friction and pressure and speed than removing swirl marks as a general rule. Okay, over here it's registering 162. Well, now it drops. I thought I could freeze that and pull it away. Yeah, 162. You'll have to take my word for it, because the second I keep the button, actually, if I do this, anyhow, you'll have to take my word for it. Every time I move the angle, it changes the temperature. Point is it's very hot. It's about probably 85 degrees outdoors right now, and I'm in the direct sunlight. So now both these areas have been polished as far as removing the sanding marks. I'm going to go ahead and leave this up because now I'm going to change pads. I'm not going to show you this because I'm a demonstrator on the hood, just for the sake of finishing this job and so you can see my next step.